I certainly don't think it'll be Sean Dyche if that's where the conversation's going. I think that they will look for something which captures the imagination a little bit more than Sean Dyche might. No offence to Sean Dyche.
How about Daniel Farke? Because
Whoa, now
this is
you're talking.
this is the
Now
current
you've got
league
an
manager.
algorithm on.
He should be celebrating getting promoted this week, and I'm sure he has been. But there's already reports today that he could be replaced this summer.
Astonishing. But you and I were talking just before we come on, Daniel, and this is really fascinating for the Rangers supporters, I think, because it might give them a little indication of what's in store, and of the level of decision making which might come along with the sort of 49ers influence. And if you really want to double down on it, you look and you say, right, we're Leeds and we need to appoint a guy that can get us promotion to the Premier League. How do we go about this? Well, there's this guy here. I know his hair looks a bit funny, but he's got some record of getting teams promoted into the Premier League. He just always does it. All right, okay, what's this guy? Oh, Daniel Farke, right, okay, bring him in. Daniel Farke does what is said, what is asked of him, what is said in the tin. He wins promotion to the Premier League. Now, the next problem you've got is, what's Daniel Farke's record like in the Premier League? Oh, it's an absolute disaster. What happened? Well, he came up with Norwich and he finished bottom the first time, got relegated with a really paltry return of points. Then what happened? Well, then he got you back up because that's what he did. Of course, so he got straight back up. Then what happened? Well, then they had to sack him after 15 games or 11 games because he'd taken 5 points from 33 in the Premier League. So, if you're really being brutal about it, you're looking at the Americans, the 49ers, and you're thinking to yourself, well, you've hired the guy that you needed to do the initial job. You've then looked at the data and the algorithms, and they've said, if you stick with this guy in the Premier League, you're taking a hell of a risk, and you're doing it out of what? Sentimentality? Because the guy earned it?
Yeah.
Now, there might be something in it. Maybe that is the case, and maybe a lot of people out there would agree with that. But if you're actually analysing his credentials to take a team into the Premier League, he's not got any, because it's been a horror story for him.
You made the point off air, which I thought was a good point. If you were appointing a manager to be a Premier League manager at Leeds now, would you go for Daniel Farke?
Premier League, any club in the Premier League.
Would you go for
Daniel Farke and say, well, the history tells you that he really struggles at this level. Aye. So no, you wouldn't. But if you were a team that was going for promotion from the Championship to the Premier League, he's your man. He's like Sam Allardyce in reverse.
Well, I guess he is. I mean, and I wouldn't feel too sorry for him. I'm sure he's got a very healthy bonus.
I mean, what a decision that is. And what interests me from a journalistic perspective, Daniel, is that story seemed to be leaked out. There seemed to be a coordination about that story coming out.
The timing was very suspicious.
Which makes me suspect that it's coming internally from the club, so that it doesn't come as a great surprise to people if or when it happens. And the story is, for those that haven't seen it, is that they are considering his position and or considering a list of alternatives for the manager's job in their first season back in the Premier League. They're not committing to either, but the sources around Leeds are saying they will consider 3 or 4 different candidates. And if they believe that none of them are better or better equipped than Farke, they'll keep Farke. But if they think that one of the 3, 4, 5 candidates they're looking at is better equipped to push Leeds up through that level and make them a Premier League team and establish them there, then they'll go elsewhere. I just think the fact that this rumour is already coming out there at such an early point, well, Leeds are still haven't shaken off the hangover from the celebration. And Farke's waking up to read the paper and find out he could be out of a job. So that doesn't look great in terms of his long-term employment security at Ellen Road. But it does throw up that question, doesn't it? If this is all sort of umbrella club stuff, are they looking at Farke thinking, well, do you know what? I don't think you're a Premier League manager. but you might be a Scottish Premiership manager. Who knows? Who knows?
Aye.
I mean, you can float the idea. Again, you've got Greta Steinson in there, who will be part of the whole decision-making process at this moment in time. How that looks going forward after summer, we're not sure, but he's been around and he's been present. Is he floating this idea? Does he? I mean, listen, he might think it's an awful idea. Who knows?
Aye.
But it is quite interesting to monitor. There's so much going on around this thing just now that you just need to keep an eye on, and I found that really interesting. But as I said to you, Daniel, see if you strip it right back and you think, if you're in charge of Leeds United and you're not worrying about anybody else, but you're thinking there's two phases here. One, get promotion, hire the guy that's brilliant at doing that. Two, once you're up there, make sure you stay up there. Sack the guy that's not very good at making sure of that.
Yeah.
So it makes sense, although it's really brutal.
Aye. We've got a couple of people writing in, Keith. John Orr is one of them, if I can find this here. He says, quite simply, who does Keith think will be the new manager?
Genuinely, not a clue. Genuinely not. But for all the reasons that we're discussing, you know, it's impossible to get inside this. What I would say is, see the bookies list that you're seeing, ignore them. Ignore them. Listen, there might be a name that comes from nowhere